With your experience, what are your thoughts on balancing the adoption of new technologies like MCP versus relying on proven methodologies?
It feels to me that the answer here is relatively obvious. It's like, to me, I guess this is just like reiterating what I've already said as well. Like, using the LLM or using MCP is something that I do in addition to kind of like my general, it's complementary. It doesn't drive the work that I'm doing. I think depending on what you're doing, what context you're in, you're always sort of like there's a continuum between like how much control you need to have and how much control you're willing to relinquish. And I think it's important to be aware of the context that you're in to understand, okay, am I in a context where, I don't know, maybe kind of coming back to something that you said before, like integrating an authentication framework. There, I need to understand how the hell this thing's supposed to work. But part of that understanding could be being like, okay, show me how to do this integration. What are the edge cases that I need to look
Exactly.
for? Then use that information, maybe go back to the provider's documentation, look to see where they call out, hey, by the way, be careful. This is the kind of, and that's kind of situation where you say, okay, like I'm high alert here because this is something I can't fuck up. In other situations, you say, okay, well, it's not that high stakes. Let's see what the LLM has to say about it. Let's see what I get from the things. And like, okay, it looks good enough to me. I'll run the code. It works. Fine. Okay, it's probably fine. I had this yesterday. So I was doing something else, also like AWS stuff. It was not coding. It was vectorizers don't work with VPC. Okay. Like timescale services can be put in a VPC, and then they're only accessible like if the customer creates a VPC and does VPC peering between our account and their account. And if the customer's instance is in a VPC, then our vectorizers can't reach it because it's not publicly accessible. And so we were putting together a design document of like, how do we make this work? And there were a couple of proposals, and I thought that I saw an issue with it. And so I kind of started by asking Claude, like, okay, how would you propose that this solution would be solved? And it kind of like lists out some problems, like, okay, some solutions. Like, okay, but there's an additional constraint in the situation, which is this. And it was like, okay, well, then I could do it like this. And I was like, okay. Then it got to a point where it has a solution that like at surface level looked like it was fine. And I kind of used that as a starting off point, and I went into the documentation to like figure out, okay, how exactly does it, because I don't know, that's how I work. Like, I'm happy to get the input, but I need to understand for myself, how the fuck does this thing actually work? And it turned out like that it made a suggestion that just didn't work. And when I confronted it with that issue, I was like, so what about like this case here that you didn't account for? It was like, oh yeah, you're right, this won't work. Okay, I mean, I'm glad that you know that now. Why didn't you know that when you gave me the answer?
For me personally, I'd like to understand how the things work, and then I understand how they work. I can trust whatever AI generates for me. You can think of yourself as the manager of the team of workers, where workers are pieces of artificial intelligence, right? You can be the manager that just trust them to do whatever they want, right? Or you can be a manager who understands the technology and can guide them to do very specific things in the specific ways. And if something is not working, you'll be able to interfere and adjust as needed. If I'll change the perspective and look at my job, like my job as solution architect is to explain and educate, in this case, customers on how to achieve things with timescale or whatever the technology I'm working with better, right? So my day job is explaining to other people how to do things with technology. I sleep easy because like my job changes only in terms of, hey, I'm not explaining that much to people, but I would explain more things to AI. Right now, just try different things. Like the field is quickly evolving. The more you understand, the more you've tried, the better you'll be prepared to what comes next. Once again, things like security, compliance, they evolving, but they're not there yet as a big picture. So by the time there would be a standard to official best practices, you'll be ready to that.
I really don't see much controversy with MCP. I think it's just a pretty straightforward way to just add new capabilities. I mean, there might be some security concerns at some point. So I would be kind of wary about just pulling down any old MCP server. Like I'm not using it for Grubhub or ordering stuff off Amazon or security aside, I don't really see anything controversial about MCP. The broader question about developer workflows, I think for the time being, like I'm sticking to my tried and true workflow that I've done forever. Probably won't change that for a while, but I'll see LLMs as an addition to it. The more I work with them, and the more I may or may not trust them. I still want to write the code myself, and I worry again, like I guess comparing it back to like LSPs and IDE features a long time ago, I programmed
Yes.
when there wasn't syntax highlighting. I don't know. You think about like before smartphones, I used to remember people's phone numbers and now I don't. Remember directions to places and now I don't. So I guess part of me is a little wary that the more I hand over to a computer, the smaller my brain gets. But again, I use syntax highlighting.
Yeah.
I'll use, line completion. I think it's important to like maintain a certain level of discipline and distrust of the LLM and kind of be like scrutinizing, like a PR review. Teammates, they're smart, but you still scrutinize their work. I guess that's where I am right now. Look, I think people who write software tend to be people who are exceptionally good at thinking rationally and logically and breaking down problems into smaller problems and putting them in some sort of meaningful order. And I think you have to approach working with an LLM the same way. And I think people who can do that will be good at both. They'll be good at writing software and they'll be good at working with LLMs. Which is part of the reason why I don't think, at least at this point, that software engineers are going to disappear. You need somebody who can break problems down like that and knows what needs to be built, maybe not on a line-by-line basis, to direct the thing and to be able to review what it spits out and know if it's junk or not. It's more about being able to have systems thinking, being able to problem solve and break down problems and explain them. So like maybe you have an advantage if like it's a large language model. So if you are good with natural language, explaining in natural language, probably going to get better results.